So, thank you so much for tuning into Culture Fix. Today, I am joined by the brilliant French-Australian musician Flo Chase, who is fresh from releasing his impressive reggae-infused new single, Get Out. Flo has a truly impressive discography with a huge amount of singles that cross numerous genres and two studio albums, Seasons and Toi. So, Flo, thank you so much for joining me. It's a real pleasure to chat to you.
Likewise, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
It's exciting times for you because we have obviously a brand new single out. What's the response been?
It's been really nice, actually. It's only been out for about a week, but I'm really stoked that people are responding. It's my first tracks for 2025. And I guess my last single was similar, but it's sort of a new sound for me. So it's been really cool to get great feedback on it. And yeah, people have been super supportive.
Yeah, so I mean, it's quite a personal one. Reading the kind of the story behind it, I don't know how much obviously you want to say because it's quite, do you want to
Go
stall
personal.
it?
I don't mind sharing. That's what I guess it's all about. People are interested to find out what the songs are actually about. But
Yeah, so do you
yeah,
want to
it's
tell me a little bit about that?
Yes, I actually wrote it a while ago, so it's still personal, but obviously it was more personal at the time. But I wrote it after a breakup. I was in a relationship for quite a long time, and when you process things, you look at the good, you look at the bad, and I just thought it's more about how important it is to just remember the good times. There's obviously a lot of memories that I'll keep on for the rest of my life, and that's sort of what the single is about: getting out of your own head, accepting the end of things, I guess, and embracing all the positives that came with the relationship.
Yeah, because it's an optimistic song. It is positive, and I guess it's
Yeah,
that kind of just it's that juxtaposition between quite, tough emotions and quite a positive sound.
I guess I've always liked to do I guess the dark and the light to play against like the negative, well, not negative, I guess sadder lyrics in a way with positive instrumentation. It's funny actually. Yesterday I was listening back to when I first wrote it, like a voice memo. It was definitely using, I guess, minor chords, something sounding a little bit more sad. So I'm glad it ended up feeling more like a bright summer type of vibe.
Amazing. And I think reggae music kind of has that just good vibes, isn't it? You don't often hear a really kind of tragic or traumatic reggae song.
Yeah, totally.
So when you're kind of writing based on personal emotion, is it a bit of a challenge? You're like, how much do I share? Or do you just kind of think like get it all out there and kind of have that cathartic release?
Yeah, I try not to think too much about it. I think being vulnerable is so important as a songwriter. So usually when it comes out, it needs to come out. I don't think ahead of what if it's too much or what people are gonna think, because you never really know if the song is actually gonna come out or not. But yeah, I think it's important to be open.
Yeah, I think almost if you're too scientific about it, people pick
Yeah.
up on that and it doesn't feel authentic. So I think you sound right. Just kind of go with what comes from the heart and just kind of let it happen.
Yeah, I feel like I personally resonate more with songs where I can tell it came from, I guess, a pretty vulnerable, honest place.
Yeah.
So
Um, what speaks to you about the world of reggae? Is it what kind of draw? I know obviously your kind of your roots in New Caledonia. I don't know if that's a particularly kind of reggae infused place or what kind of spoke to you about that.
it kind of is actually. It's really big on reggae over there. Some of I think my second album had some reggae in it. I was always wondering why, because my roots are more folky.
Yeah.
But when I look back on it, I grew up listening to reggae. Every time I do go back to New Caledonia, I really enjoy listening to reggae. So I think that's where it kind of came from. I was like, it's funny, it's folky, but I'm still doing things that sound a little reggae to me. And I've been wanting to make a reggae record for a while. So
It's kind of absorbed it. Yeah, it's
I
interesting.
guess it's funny, yeah, how your brain develops at a young age or something. I'm not sure, but
Do
yeah.
you think this is going to be the kind of direction maybe with a new album? Are you going to stick with this sound or what are you thinking?
Yeah, it's definitely going to be in that sonic sound, I guess. It's almost done. I've only got a few more tracks to write, but yeah, I'm actually really excited.
With an album, what's your kind of process with an album? Do you go in with a vibe in mind or like a kind of emotional headspace in mind, or do you just kind of see what happens
It's
with a collection of songs?
It kind of depends. They've all been kind of different experiences. This one I wrote over quite a long period of time, but I've been writing a lot of that reggae type of reggae rock, reggae pop, and it feels like all the latest work I've been making falls into that one record. But yeah, like my first album, I recorded and wrote all the songs in like a month, so it definitely felt like they all came from the exact same place. This one's been done over time, but it's definitely got a similar vibe.
Nice. When you kind of were doing your first album, would you kind of look back now with a bit more experience in the industry, a bit more kind of music released? Would you change anything, or are you quite happy to have, had that journey?
It's such a tough. I have that discussion all the time. Obviously, you go back and you're perfectionist. Like, oh, I should have done this that way. But I think it's really cool just to look back on it. Obviously, the more you do something, the better you get at it. I feel like I've grown as a songwriter, producer as well. But I still enjoy going back and listening to the records. And I think it's cool that it's still out there. I've definitely thought about removing some of my old stuff in the past, but I personally like to listen to some of my favorite artists, like earlier work.
Mhm.
Uh, it's cool for people to see a human side as well and see the progress, I guess.
Yeah, I think it is, maybe from a kind of artist point of view, you're like, oh, that's not who I am anymore. You maybe want rid of it. But I think from a listener's point of view, if there are songs that you're really attached to from the early part of an artist's career and then they vanish, there's something quite sad about that. So yeah, I don't
Yeah,
I like it still being out there, but it's not my music.
I appreciate that. That's motivating. It's also interesting too, because usually I find most of myself and a lot of artists, the first record tends to perform the best. It's very interesting. So that's also why I wouldn't take him down, because even though I might be like, people still enjoy those songs. So may as well leave it out in the universe.
So you mentioned there like the first record tends to perform best. How caught up in like streaming numbers and things do you get? Or are you quite good at just kind of releasing the song and just enjoying the process and not looking too much at that side of things?
It's tough, especially the day and age we live in. I feel like it's important to look at it in a way, just if you want to, I guess, break through or at least make some sort of income. But I try not to look too much at numbers. I don't think it means anything. Some of my favorite songs that I've heard hardly have any streams. It doesn't mean that they're bad songs. It just means that they didn't pick up or something. So I think there's a fine line. You don't want to get caught up in it, but it's still important to
Yeah.
look at it.
I think it's
Yeah.
tough, isn't it? Because, the social media marketing side of things has become a job in itself when actually, that's not what you set out to do. And I sometimes find it when we are sharing things on the website, it becomes a huge process to share it on Instagram, Twitter, Threads. That's
It's
not
also,
what you're wanting to do.
no, it's also kind of ridiculous because I feel like our eyes has changed. People take people more seriously if the numbers are higher.
Yeah.
It is what it is. I mean, most people anyway. I know when I'm speaking to management or labels, it's very important that my numbers are up. And I try not to look at it myself, but if the song's got, I don't know, like 100,000 or a million streams, I might look into it more than if it's a song that's only got 500 streams or something, which is really stupid. But I feel like it's the day and age we live in.
Yeah, I think even using things like Spotify, that one of the first things you do is you look at those top five, top 10 songs, and you go to the ones that got the big numbers because you think, oh, people like this one, so why?
Which is actually kind of annoying as an artist because some of the songs that I want people to hear don't necessarily do as well. So, when you go on someone's Spotify, you got like the top songs. I'm like, oh, I wish this song was what people would hear first.
Well, I guess with sort of the music video as well, it'd be great to talk about that because that was really quite, you're going for a sort of timeless vibe, but you can't really place when it's set, and it's that kind of mix of old and new. It's quite an interesting video. So, how did you come about with that idea?
I gotta give credit to his name is Joey, who directed the video from Storylit Films. I've been working with him for the past couple of music videos. Again, I love to go with contrast. It's a pretty upbeat song, feels pretty current, but I love the idea of making it look old school and feel like it was shot in the 80s. It's got a bit of a darker tone, which sort of highlights some of the lyrical content. But honestly, I've been so stoked since I started working with Joey. He's such a genius. So most credit goes to him. Yeah.
And were you living in LA when you filmed that, or what's your kind of current situation? Are you based in Australia? Are you based in LA?
I've been based in LA for the past 6 years now. I'm currently in Australia. That's why it's daytime. But I shot that one in Sacramento. So I drove up. It's only about an 8 hour drive from LA. And we shot it really quick. We shot it in like 2 hours.
Worth it to find a spot like that because actually you look at music videos, there's nothing like that. So actually it's a
Yeah.
really distinctive video.
Again, again, that's all Joe. He's like, he told me, he's like, I think it'd be worth it for you to drive up this way, like Old Town Sacramento. It's gonna look really cool on camera. And I was like, of course, if Joey says that, it makes a lot of sense. And it
Yes,
looks cool because
trust
it's
him.
fully curved. But once you see it back as well with this touch, it's like, oh wow, it actually looks really cool.
Yeah,
Like
it
the build.
does. Um, I'd love to talk a little bit about your background as well, because obviously you've got a really interesting story, born and raised in France until was it 12 years old? Um,
Yes.
and then going to Australia. So can you talk to me a wee bit about that and how that kind of shaped you?
So I was born in Paris, born in Europe as well, not too far from London, I guess. But then my parents moved to an island called New Caledonia when I was one. So I'm not the most French person you'll meet. I've only been to France like 4 times in my life. So, but yeah, I was there from age 1 till 12 until we relocated to Australia. So that's why when people ask me where I'm from, I'm like, I don't even know.
Yeah.
So I'm like French Australian because as much as like my roots are French, my blood is French, but Australia feels like home. I feel like those years were really important from 12 to 20.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It
And
was kind of a different vibe, isn't it? France is, quite relaxed, but also there's European things that, everyone has to do. We're quite strict with those sort of things. And then
yeah,
obviously Australia is quite more, liberal and um so I guess it's an interesting sort of melting pot.
I'm actually so grateful my parents came to Australia because I feel like it's opened me up quite a lot mentally and even as a musician. But yeah, just going from school in New Caledonia to school in Australia was such an experience. Like I would go surfing in the morning, surf after school. Well, when I was living in New Caledonia, it was school from 7 a.m. till 5 p.m. So you didn't really have much time to do things outside of school. Yeah, Australia is really cool for that. They have a really good balance of work and life, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, we're missing out in Europe, definitely. But the weather is not as good here to be able to do that, so it is difficult. Well, given that lack of free time, I am amazed that you managed to master so many different instruments because obviously we've got drums, banjo, harmonica, ukulele. Where did you find the time?
Mostly during college or uni. I don't know if you guys say uni in England.
Yeah.
Yeah, I went to music school and they basically had rehearsal rooms and studios that we could use at any time. So I wasn't really much of a, I've always been a bit of an old soul. While most of my friends would go out and party at night, I would just be trying to pick up new instruments. I don't play all these instruments very well, just enough production and, just to play around on them. But I've always found it like super interesting to pick up new instruments.
What's on your list to try next?
I want to get back more into saxophone. I started saxophone about a year ago, but I've been a bit lazy. The place I was living at in LA, I had a roommate, and it's not the easiest instrument to play, especially when you're not great at it.
Yeah, I
So
can imagine that makes it pretty difficult.
yeah, I want to get back into saxophone now, and there's plenty of things I'd like to learn. I'd like to learn mandolin as well. That'd be a cool one.
Yeah. And how do you choose what to incorporate into a live show? Because I guess if you can do quite a bit, do you just think, well, I'm just going to sing for this, or just do a little bit of maybe guitar, or how do you decide what you'll do on stage?
For the most part, I actually feel naked if I'm not playing guitar. I don't really just sing. So I usually have a guitar or a banjo behind me. As much as I love to play other instruments, I would do a bit of like drums and saxophone in the show, but I feel like the players that I play with are just a million times better than me at it. So I let them do that part. I'll just have a bit of fun with them like it's in some songs and stuff. But yeah, I definitely feel like most comfortable with guitar and vocals.
Have you got many live shows planned for the next year or so?
So I'm heading back to the US at the end of the month, and I have a couple shows in LA, and we're trying to do a bit of a tour around the US. So hopefully I'll announce those soon. But it'd be cool to go to the East Coast. I still haven't played in Florida. It'd be cool to do a couple of Florida shows.
Nice.
Was it
Kind of, have you felt a kind of a shift since the pandemic that kind of getting back out there as a live artist is kind of
cool?
back to normal now, or is it still
Yeah,
slight? different.
Exactly. It feels a lot more normal now than it did, especially for live shows. I feel like people are finally like really enjoying going back out, watching live music. And even I guess as individuals, for a minute it was a bit weird, like because we were locked up for so long, even socially, like I felt myself awkward talking to the crowd and stuff. But
Yeah.
it's definitely becoming more normal and a bit more open because when COVID ended, it was really hard to find places to play because everything was booked up for everything they had cancelled. So yeah.
No, it's good that you can actually get some live dates in the diary and actually start to think about getting back out there because it must be a great way to kind of meet a whole sort of legion of new fans because so many times people just take a chance on a new artist in a live setting.
Yeah. I feel like you connect differently. It's important in social media and Spotify and all that is. Of course, it's important. I just, even myself, when I go watch a band, you just connect differently with live music and actually meeting the musician.
Yeah.
So I just feel like it's probably the best way to promote yourself for people to actually come and experience the live show.
Yeah, and I think sometimes there's plenty of times where I've maybe heard a track on Spotify or YouTube or whatever, and then you think, oh, okay, and then you hear it in a live setting, you think, oh, that's actually really great.
I actually like this song.
Yeah, it does. It really changes your relationship with the song.
Yeah, the energy is always different for
Yeah.
sure. Yeah.
I'd love to think a little bit about some of the differences between the US and Australia from like a musician's point of view. Do you find it different being a creative person in the US to being a creative person back home?
I kind of left right after school, so I haven't had that much experience like touring and stuff in Australia. But one thing that I love about the US and California is just how everybody's so creative. It's been super motivating. Just you get to play with amazing musicians. Everybody's willing to work on stuff. I feel like in Australia, maybe it's changed since. It's a little bit more closed up. Obviously, there's not as many people doing it. It's harder to break through. People are a bit more close-minded from my experience. But yeah, that's been sort of the highlight about living in LA. It's just how open-minded people are and creative.
I think, yeah, if you're surrounded by creative people, you then suddenly feel a lot more inspired yourself, don't you? So it's a kind of a nice loop to be in.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
So, thinking back to yourself when you first started releasing music in 2017, would you give yourself any kind of pieces of advice now, sort of, what are we, 8 years on? Yeah, 8 years on. Would you give yourself any pieces of advice to your younger self about the industry and about releasing music?
Yeah, the biggest one would just be trusting the process and not expecting too much or relying too much on other people because it's a long journey. Uh, of course, collaboration is the best thing, but it takes like quite a lot of time to find the people that you're really gonna keep working with and stuff. So yeah, that would probably be the biggest piece of advice and patience. Yeah.
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 When you started out, were you working mostly kind of on your own to kind of your first kind of initial songs, or did you have a kind of small team that you were working with?
I was mostly working with my brother. So my brother and I are really close. He studied sound production and I studied
Andy?
performance. So he was, yeah, it was super handy. We'd literally be making music every night. He was more into electronic music, but he's also a producer, so he helped me with my stuff. So yeah, worked with him a lot. He also did all my videos back then.
This
Yeah,
is it's
super
a good little
handy.
partnership.
Yeah, I guess probably like I had it better than him. I was the annoying. He's like my-
Yeah, you got the glory, he got the behind the scenes work.
Yeah.
Um, so you've hinted obviously at a third album. Is that coming this year or next year? What are you thinking?
Coming this year. I just don't have a date yet, just because I still have to finish a couple songs. Most of them are written, but I just don't know how long it's going to take. Hopefully sooner, but definitely by the end of the year.
Nice. And how long does that process take of kind of like mastering and mixing the tracks? Is that quite a I'd imagine the fun part is being creative in the studio and kind of doing the vocals, doing the instrumentation. The mastering and the mixing doesn't seem as fun to me.
100%. It's also easier because you just send it off and people do it. But I just like I guess with time your ear becomes like so like it really wants to pick up on certain things. So I definitely feel more free-minded, like open-minded when I'm producing the song. when you come down to mixing and mastering, basically you're just critically listening and you're not really enjoying the listening experience.
Yeah.
But yeah, my favorite part is being in the studio and playing new instruments, adding stuff, trying things. It's just so fun.
It must be quite strange to like let go of the song and send it away to be mastered because I guess as you say, you become a bit of a kind of perfectionist. You're listening to it repeatedly, thinking, should I change that? Should I change that line? Is it quite difficult letting go of it and going, okay, it's out my hands?
Yeah, 100%. Because I also feel like we listen to it way different when you've been working on a song for so long. Like you hear it differently than 99% of people. Obviously, most people are more critical of themselves as well. So you probably focus on certain things that people wouldn't. So yeah, there's a fine line. I think it's good to be picky, but you have to learn to let go. Yeah.
There you go. There's a song title. Learn to let
Yeah.
go.
Learn to let go.
Um, so who's currently exciting you musically? Are there any artists that you're really enjoying or anyone maybe that's maybe not quite as big that you'd like to give a shout out to?
I've been listening to a lot of reggae stuff lately. So it's a band called Sticky Fingers from Australia. They've definitely shaped my new sound. I've been like listening to them a lot. Always been a huge John Mayer fan. I guess that's more blues, but yeah, I still listen to him quite a lot. Who else have I been listening to? Someone that's, I guess, from the UK, Ben Howard.
Yeah.
Obviously, he's been a big inspiration of mine. I think he's fantastic. Someone less known. There's so many great less known artists. A band that I love, it's called Holocaust. They're still known and doing very well, but I listen to them quite a lot. The Paper Kites is another one.
Do you
Yeah.
find when you're listening to another artist, you kind of absorb their sound, or is it quite easy to sort of stay detached from their thing and do your thing?
It depends how much I listen to them. Like if I listen to someone a lot, I'm like, hold on, I'm sounding just like them.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. So
Okay, I've
yeah, I
heard that
try
line
to.
before.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, it's so good to get inspiration, but yeah, I try not to listen to a record too much on repeat because then I'm like, oh wow, I'm just doing the exact same thing.
I'd love to think further ahead and ask what your kind of your big goals are, maybe for the next sort of few years. Like, what would you really like to achieve musically, in your career?
The biggest one would be touring. I still haven't toured in Europe. I would love to come out and play Europe, even more shows in Australia. There's a really cool festival scene in Australia, especially for that reggae sound.
Nice.
So if I could get into that for the next couple of years, obviously if one song, I think a hit song would obviously open up a lot of doors. So if one song could take off as well, that would be awesome.
Nice. Yeah, I think it sounds but all plausible. I think it's going to happen.
Thanks, Andrew.
Um,
Appreciate it.
I had another kind of question that's always intrigued me with artists is you often hear about their music being licensed for things on Netflix and TV shows and things like that. Have you had any experience of that?
A little bit. That's actually a great way to make passive income as well as a musician. Yeah, it's also tough to get into. It's pretty competitive these days, especially with AI and all that. But yeah, syncing is a big thing. Yeah, that's also something I'm working on, trying to find a new syncing company just to get some of those songs placed.
And is that how it works? You would choose a company that would kind of submit some of your songs.
Basically, yeah, yeah,
Nice. Just always been curious as to how that works because often you will hear kind of artists say, "Oh, my song's been featured on Love Island" or Love is
yeah.
something
It
like that.
comes with luck. I've had friends where a certain director or producer heard a song and reached out to get it in a film. Or you do have like online platforms where you can like pitch it yourself.
Yeah.
Usually if you have a pretty good agency or a good agent pitching it, it helps for
Yeah.
sure.
It's like another one of these things that it's not what you signed up to do, but it's part of the experience is you've
Uh,
got to do it. Uh,
yeah,
let's wrap up with some quick fire. First thing that pops into your head. Nothing too
okay.
tricky. I always say nothing too tricky, but there's a few in there that people are like, "What?"
Get nervous.
Um, what is your go-to karaoke song?
Oh, dude, I hate karaoke. I don't do karaoke. I
You
avoid
know,
karaoke.
I'd really appreciate you saying that because I do as well, and I think it's one of these things that if you're good, you seem like a show off. If you're not good,
Yeah,
it's embarrassing.
exactly.
Nobody wins.
And I'm also more of a singer-songwriter. Like I love writing and singing songs. I'm not someone who can sing anything. So like, yeah, you put on a Bruno Mars track, I'll be bad anyway. So,
I appreciate the honesty. If you could only listen to one album for the rest of your life, what would it be?
Born and Raised by John Mayer, I think. Yeah.
Um, what is a guilty pleasure song of yours that you really love that maybe you're a little bit embarrassed about, if there's any?
I don't think I have any. No, nothing comes to mind. Yeah.
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 Um,
Yeah.
is there a
I guess it's
song? Well,
Dua Lipa. I don't really feel ashamed of it, but I think she's got some great songs. Yeah. Yeah.
is there a song that you wish you had written by another artist?
I feel that way about so many songs. Which one? One of my favorite songs is by Kings of Leon. It's called Back Down South. That's probably the first one that comes to mind.
Um, your favorite thing about home,
The beach.
the beach.
Yeah.
Your favorite way to unwind. Unwind. This might be linked to your last answer.
I think playing tennis. I've always grew up playing tennis. It's like one of the only places, as well as music, where I'm like, wait, hold on. I just played for an hour. I thought about nothing else but tennis, which is so hard to do.
Um, what is your favorite film?
Pursuit of Happiness.
Nice. Your all-time favorite singer. I think we maybe know this one.
Is it boring to say John Mayer again?
That's what I thought was coming.
Yeah,
Um,
ratings up an hour for sure.
what is your biggest fear?
Biggest fear. Probably airport customs, actually. I've had a bad experience once, so since then I've had PTSD about customs.
Yes, it's not the nicest place.
Yeah, it's a random one, but yeah, that comes to mind.
Your favorite place to travel?
Oof. Um, I guess home is definitely one of them. Like there's just a certain feeling about coming back to Australia. Bali is a good one too. And
I'd love to
I
go
don't think you can beat your European summer. Like summer in Europe is just so good.
there. Your worst habit,
I bite my fingernails, yeah.
especially
Yeah.
in customs.
Yep.
Um, do you have anywhere that fans can reach out and follow you? Do you want to give a little kind of shout out to your socials?
Yeah, basically anywhere. I check my Instagram probably the most these days. So I check my DMs. People think people don't check him, but we do check him. So that one, anything Bandcamp, I think I have my email on there if you want to send me an email, Facebook, YouTube. Yeah.
Amazing. Well, Flo, it's honestly been a real pleasure chatting to you, finding out about the song and your kind of future plans, and really great to hear your stories.
Thank you, Andrew. Likewise, it's been awesome.
Amazing. Well, enjoy the rest of your day, and I'll catch up soon.